temple not far outside of Kyoto, Japan. Zen master Soko Morinaga once said, "Pissing is something that no one else can do for you." Now, what he meant was we all need our communities, our families, our teachers, our teammates. But some things cannot be delegated. Some things cannot be left for others to do for you. And on those things, each of us must stand up or sit down and do that which only we can do. Josh?
Thanks, Bill. So, how many of you here are employees or are looking to become employees? Fair number of you. Good. I'm talking to you. When Bill and I first started doing research around our book, a friend of mine had a problem that made me really realize that work is broken and led me to understand some of the issues that we ended up addressing with the book itself. What had happened to him was that he had gotten his dream job. He was working for a large multinational that had offices all over the world, and he was flying around between all the different branches trying to bring in more innovation, and particularly to figure out why it was that each branch was not collaborating with the other. I mean, it sounds like a great gig, right? I mean, it's pretty fun stuff, and he was making good money. But after a few weeks of doing this, he discovered that he had a problem. And the problem was that everything that he bought along the way, every business expense that he made, whether it was a stick of gum or a 5-course meal for a client, he had to go in and use the corporate expensing system. And the corporate expensing system required that for every transaction, he fill out 60 fields of text fields and checkboxes and drop-downs. And this is pain we've all felt before. And that made me realize that in many ways, the tools that we're getting at work suck, frankly. Anybody here remember Internet Explorer 6, built in 2001? I see the grimaces, yes. Internet Explorer 6 was, or is widely cited in computer science classes as a great example of bad software. It's very buggy, it breaks all the time, and it's got enough security holes that if you want to lose your credit card, that's the best way to go about it. It's also still today the second most popular browser in the world. Why is that? It's because large corporations are moving so slowly that they can't give their employees the tools that they need. In fact, a recent Forrester report showed that 20% of executives that were being interviewed knew that their employees were all using Google Docs. But 90% of those same executives said that they were paying to have Microsoft Office installed on every machine. Now that means they're paying $500 or $600 a year for each laptop machine, desktop machine that their employees were using, knowing full well that their employees were avoiding it in order to use something that was better. So that's the bad news. The good news is that we can fix it. So my friend, after dealing with this problem for a few months and spending, he estimated, something like 5 hours a week filling out this silly expense form, he thought, well, you know, I've been doing security, IT security and computer stuff for a long time. I'm going to make a solution to this. He wrote a little script that went out to his bank's website and scraped all his expense transactions, put it into the right format for his expensing system, and emailed it to him. And then he checked over it to make sure that there were no mistakes, and if it was okay, he hit a button and inserted it into the finance department's database through a security hole. Small issue there. But he'd been doing IT security for 15 years, and he figured, you know, I know that what I'm doing is safe. And it's saving me, on average, he claimed, 4 hours and 55 minutes a week. Now, what would you do with an extra 4 hours and 55 minutes a week? You could get a lot done, yes? And this is what happened with him, is he ended up loving his job, because now he was able to do what he really wanted to do, which was to travel around and get people to collaborate and innovate and enjoy themselves. Now, the good news about this is that you don't have to be a technologist to do it. If you go online now and Google how to X, where X is a problem you have, you'll find millions and millions of results of people that are trying to solve the problem, tutorials, video guides, news groups, chat rooms, etc. You've got Flickr for pictures, YouTube for videos, you've got MySpace, you've got LinkedIn. There's more tools now that are designed expressly for you to use to solve your problems than you ever have before. At the same time, your networks are also a whole lot better than they've ever been in human history. On average, every Facebook user has 120 friends and is a member of 12 groups. And recent research shows that the more people you're friended with on LinkedIn, the greater the chance that you'll have a higher than average income. So there's your homework for the day. So let me bring this back to my friend. After he'd been running this little program for a while just to solve this problem that he had, he started to realize that the thing that he'd been hired for, which was to figure out why all these branches weren't collaborating, was stemmed from the same root cause, which was that the branches weren't collaborating because people never spent any time together. And they never spent any time together because they didn't want to travel. And they didn't want to travel because of the expensing system. So he thought, well, hey, you know, I'm saving myself 5 hours a week, and I'm a well-salaried guy. What's going to happen if I save equivalent amount of time for everyone in the company? So he calculated how much money that would save the company if everyone was able to use the application. He calculated how much more competitive the company would be in their marketplace if they were able to innovate and collaborate the way that they had asked him to be able to do. And then he figured out how much it would cost to make this application enterprise ready, which basically meant writing documentation. So he was pretty stoked. He called the executive team in and sat them down. And he put them through a 45-minute PowerPoint and explained every single way in which he was going to save them millions and millions of dollars and make them more competitive in their marketplace. And as soon as he was done, they fired him. Which brings me to my last point, which is that there's consequences to all this, but not the kind of consequences that you think. 3 days after he'd been fired, my buddy asked if I'd go out and have a beer with him. And I don't know if you've ever gone out with a friend who's recently been fired, but it's not usually a walk in the park. So I showed up expecting that I'd be buying him beers and trying to keep him from crying on the bar. And when I arrived, I found that he was there and he was grinning ear from ear. And I asked him, dude, what's up? Didn't you just get canned? And he said, well, yeah, I got canned, but that's a good thing. I'm like, well, why is that a good thing? And he says, well, I gave the company a golden opportunity on a silver platter. I solved the problem that they hired me to solve. I gave them an opportunity to be more innovative, more competitive than anyone else in their market, and they fired me because I didn't follow the rules. That's not the kind of company I want to work for. And that's the kind of attitude that we're starting to see everyone have today. So, for example, most of you are going to have at least 10 jobs, 10 careers in your lifetime. If a company is not supporting you, you've got options. And if you don't take those options, your peers will. The people who are talented, and the people who are motivated, the people who care about what they're up to are breaking rules because it's the only way to move forward. So there's another reason why my friend was really excited about this whole thing. And it took a couple more beers to get it out of him. But he said, well, okay, there's something else. I've got 4 job offers now. And this is 3 days after he'd been fired, right? So I said, well, how's that possible? And he said, well, in the elevator on the way out of the building, I was holding my stuff in one arm, but I was tweeting about it in the other. And then on the ride home on the bus, I was, blogging about it on Facebook. And then I got home and I wrote a piece about it on my blog. And 2 people contacted me the very next day and said, look, we're hiring. You've demonstrated so much initiative and insight and innovation. We've put the hiring process on hold so you can come in here. And he had 2 other people that wrote and said, we're not hiring, but we're so impressed with what you're doing. We'll hire you right now for 10% more than what you're making. Just come in and let us have some of what you got. There was one other thing that made him particularly happy, and it took several more beers to get this out of him. But it turns out that software that he'd built, that he tried to give to his company to save them millions of dollars and make them more competitive, he sold it to their competitor. Bill?
Which leads us to, dear senior executives and leadership teams, you're killing us! The infrastructure, the tools, the support you give us work for you, they stink for us. And we know this is not malicious. I mean, you're rated on your bottom line, but intentional ignorance is no excuse. You are making us piss for you in ways that you would not tolerate. And you know what the problem is? It's not the technology. I don't care what the next 2.0, 3.0, Twitter, this, but well, it doesn't matter. Those are just enablers. You know what the problem is? Intent. Everything you design, Mr. Senior Executive, is corporate-centered. Hardly anything you design is user-centered. Which brings us to a good example of a story we once heard from a retailer that was having difficulty getting sales going. And they were trying to figure out, it was a global retailer, they're trying to figure out why, what's the problem. So they sent researchers and consultants out into the field to figure it out. They went out into the stores, and the researchers and consultants came back, and they said, guys, you're not wearing any clothes. The problem is you're not giving the stores what they need to sell to customers. You're not equipping them. You're not training and developing them right. You're not giving them the tools and support. And the senior execs went, that can't be it. It's not our problem. You must be wrong. So eventually, after much finger pointing, they decided they would go out to the field to see if any of this could be true. And the senior execs went out, and one was the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. The Chief Financial Officer was made a cashier for the day. He sat down at 9 a.m. when he checked in at the cash register, and he started doing all this. Wait, this barcode reader doesn't work. How come this credit? Where's customer service? Where's this? How come this customer has so many complaints? Why don't we have nice customers? Started to blame everything on anything but what he was responsible for. He couldn't make it through the day. He only made it a half day. He slumped in the break room. He looked forlorn. One of his teammates, who didn't know his real identity, came over to him. Hun, what's the problem? What's troubling you? And he started to relay everything that he just experienced, and she said, oh, you have no idea. Wait until holiday season. It gets a lot worse. And she said, if only corporate was here to see this, if they only understood what we needed to satisfy our customers. So we went back to the senior team, and he said, you know what? I never realized how hard it is to make money in our stores. Does anybody see the disconnect? The CFO is saying, I never realized how hard it is to make money in the stores. And this is not just an isolated incident. We make it hard for the workforce to do their jobs. The research that the authors of Empowered just came out with data that said the average worker out there, 20 to 30%, about 1/3 of the workforce are using unauthorized technology just so they can get their work done. Josh and I did the similar research. We came up to, in some cases, it's up to 2/3 of the workforce are using unauthorized technology to get their work done. Josh and I went around the world. We asked different people, compare what is in your hand, your iPhone, your iPad, your laptop, whatever you're using at home. Compare your own personal information technology to what the corporate wizards give to you. Give us an estimate of your reduction in productivity and efficiency. 30% to 75% reduction in efficiency and productivity by using corporate-centered tools and products and procedures and all of that stuff. Senior executives, please, we're pleading with you. You have an X trillion-dollar opportunity. The global economy right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 trillion. You take the numbers that we came up with and that others come up with, there's an efficiency loss, an effectiveness, and a productivity loss of 30 to 75%. That's trillions of dollars you could be making. We need to deal with this. Hello? Get it. We need you to get this. The workforce is amazing. They want to do amazing work. And you are so corporate-centered, you're more focused on risks and cost controls than actually making dollars and enabling. Josh, I can't go on. I mean, I'm talking too much to these senior execs. Will you help bring us back to where we need to be to the workforce?
Right. So
this is getting crazy.
So here's the deal. All of us who work, no matter where you're at, whether you're in the mailroom or in the corner suite, have an opportunity. And it's more than an opportunity. It's your obligation. You're empowered now in ways that you've never been before, and you have the chance to make a difference. Do it.
We're asking all of you, not just the people in front of us, anybody watches from now until eternity. Go out there. How big can you dream? There's an app for that. What would you like to see in the future? There's an app for that. The tools and the technology are not the point. It's what's here that matters. What matters is...
Good work, Bill. That's good. We get that every time.
What matters is whether you care enough to break down those walls, break the rules. Stop worrying about CYA emails and all the other things. Let's get going and change the work world. It's something that our senior execs are not doing, the marketplace is not doing. It's up to each of us individually. No one can piss for us. Let's go break the stupid rules and create the productivity and efficiency we need. Thank you very much.